Hello and welcome to The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches. I'm your host, Cassidy Huff. I am a white woman. Today, my blonde hair is pulled back into a bun. I am wearing my black glasses as always, my silver nose ring, which I always forget to mention, but I've seen a couple comments, so I'll mention it today. I'm wearing a silver long sleeve, or like gray, silver, I don't know, long sleeve sweater. I have a blank white background behind me where you can see my thermostat, just ignore it. And you guys know whenever you see that white background behind me, it's because I have a wonderful virtual guest. And today I have Miss Ryan Blackwood Smith with us. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you for having me and asking me. I am so excited. I absolutely love your podcast and have watched a ton of
Thank you.
episodes, so it's a huge honor. My name's Ryan. I am a white female with long brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. I am currently wearing a cool tone pink Communication Without Limits shirt. It is in white font with little sparkles in the corner. I also have on a gold charm necklace with some fun little ribbons and hearts on it. And then I am wearing a friendship bracelet as well as one of my cutie little hearing aids. I have a little hearing aid charm in the shape of a butterfly, like a little earring set here. I did lose the other one in my friend's couch, so we're going with single-sided hearing aids today. But
I love it.
yeah,
Also, um,
behind me, I
yeah.
have my little office set up, my little green couch with some flower blankets, pink pillows. You may see like a little cat pillow behind me, and some vision boards in my closet. Sorry for that part.
Love. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about the hearing aid charms because I don't
Yes.
have one and
Oh,
I now feel really boring. So I didn't know
I
hearing aid charms were a thing.
They're not. Not
Oh,
really. It was a happy accident. Um, when I started like my hearing aid journey, I knew I wanted to make them kind of like fun. My sweet, amazing mom helped me pay for my hearing aids when I was like starting college. And she was like fair enough to say like, hey, you should probably get like a color that matches your hair. Because I was like, I want bright pink hearing aids. And she was like, professionally, that might not be. Do I regret not pushing harder for the pink hearing aids? 100%. If I cannot find this one, I will probably get pink hearing aids. So like half of me is hoping that they just don't wind up, and then the other half of me is like, I should probably find that so I don't have to pay $2,000.
Oh, so you just lost a whole hearing aid in the
No, I
couch.
lost a whole hearing aid. Yeah, in
Oh,
my friend's couch, and then they got rid of said couch. So
no.
it
I
might
was
be
like,
at
why don't you just go over there?
Well, I know. It's like I was planning to go find it, and for my friend for her birthday got a new couch, which is super cute. It's like this green velvet couch. I'm here for it. It may be at my friend Andrew's house. It may not be. I don't know if it's like been lovingly passed through like the Facebook Marketplace realm or if it's with Andrew. No, not sure. We still need to ask him. But if not, I mean, that's just the universe telling me it's time for a pink hearing aid for sure.
I think that is what the universe is telling you. I think it's time for some hot pink hearing aid. Mine is just like the color of my skin,
Yeah.
and I I tried to push. My last one was blue. Um,
Same.
and I really loved it. But because I only wear one hearing aid, they don't really give me the option of colors.
That's fair. I know. I wish they would have like more flexibility with it, especially since pediatric hearing aids are so much more fun. I
Yeah.
have like
What? Why
little,
don't we get the fun ones?
so I think when I get new ones, I might try a different hearing aid brand. I'm not sure if I love mine or not because it's what the
Mm,
first one I've had. So like I have
mm.
no past experience. So part of me wants to be like, do I want to try like Phonak or something? And then Phonak's
What
usually
do
a
you
little.
have?
I have Oticon.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
have Phonak and I love
and I'll give a little visual description so everyone can participate in this
it.
fun
A hearing
little.
aid tour, if you will.
Yes, hearing aid toy like that. It has a black ribbon nail sticker on it, a
Love it.
red little nail sticker in the shape of a heart, and then also a pink bow nail sticker with a little gem just kind of on there. It is from Deco Beauty nail sticker brand. They also do like nail polishes and fun stuff. They have like little kits. I really want to like. My dream one day is to like work with them. Like maybe one day in the
Hey,
future. And
tag
then
them.
I got this little clear, like sparkly. butterfly like not hearing aid charm, just a normal bracelet charm from Hobby Lobby in a pack.
So cute.
And I just switched them out, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to use like pliers to get this on, so I've not taken it off in about 2 years. But she's a cutie. But what I kind of like show my friends, like I got my deaf mentor, she's a professor at a local college. I just tell them like here for hearing aids, like nail stickers are a great tool because they're not so sticky that they leave anything on your hearing aid where it destroys it. And you can kind of switch it out, but they usually don't fall off either. It just kind of depends on like how well you get it on there. But also like little like gems and stuff could be cute because it's just
Yeah.
kind of on the outside of it.
Right.
But I will say is don't cover up any speakers or microphones for it because then you're gonna start having some weird problems. But me and my
Feedback
audiologist
issues.
have talked through this and kind of figured out a system.
Genius. I
Yeah.
want also a fashionista audiologist because that would be the
Yes.
best.
He was a king.
My hearing aid is an in-ear hearing aid because my ears are really tiny. Um, but I'll give my hearing aid to her.
Please do.
Basically, it's just fitted to,
Yeah.
it's like an ear mold. I'm gonna take the battery
Perfect.
out so I don't lose it. And then the little door, the battery door
Amazing.
closes.
That's
That's how I take it out. Am I supposed to take it out that way? No,
you're
but
not.
it's okay. And then I have all of my little buttons and stuff. So
Oh,
like volume dial,
oh, you
my,
could totally
oh,
fit a sticker on there.
can I really? Do you think it's
Yeah.
too small?
No, here, I'm gonna grab my little hearing aid sticker. I think
Because
that
like I could put it like on the battery door. It won't cover anything that way,
totally.
you
Like I
know.
have a couple different like sizes and brands and stuff. Um, let's see here. What do I have? Just ignore the
Also,
fact
for
that
the listeners, this was not planned. This is
no,
just this is
not
just
planned.
us
This is
bonding over
not
here.
be rambling, I promise. But I have like this sheet, and then you can see like some of them are super tiny. What I'm showing you guys is like a sticker sheet. I think it's from Deco Beauty too. It has
That's
ribbons,
so
hearts,
cute.
strawberries, bows, little tiny heart gemstones, ballet slippers, literally anything cottagecore of your dreams. But they're so tiny, like especially the little hearts, you could totally fit a couple
Oh,
stones
I
on
could
there.
totally fit it. Oh my gosh,
And
you are
I think they have
transforming
something like
my hearing.
Olive in June as well, and they have like little sparkles and stuff.
Those are
Obviously,
so
you can
cute.
tell I have an aesthetics, but there's like so many other different
I
categories.
love that. I feel like we have the same aesthetic.
Totally. I
So
love
I
it.
feel like I trust you with this. No, this is great. I recently have been like, okay, how can I use my mobility aids that I have to wear
Yeah,
as like fashion statements, right?
I
So like, I don't know if you saw, but I have a prosthesis and my grandma used to make me toe cozies that used to like fit over the top
love
of my
that.
prosthesis
Yeah,
because otherwise my toes are just out. Like
fair.
it's my feet get cold. I mean, I live in Southern California, so they don't really anymore, but I'm from Washington State and it rains all the time.
Fun. Yeah,
And so I was like, my grandma has since passed away, and so I was like, how can I like never thought about crocheting a toe cozy because I loved crocheting. And so my boyfriend was like, you should crochet a toe cozy. And I was like, that's genius. And so I crocheted one just to like you, for fun and just to try and get the pattern down. And once I got the pattern down, now I'm like, I could make some really cute ones that
you
won't
should.
necessarily be waterproof, but like all these people in the comments were like, do a flower one, do an ombre one, do and so now I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could make one for literally every outfit.
You should. And I'm obsessed with that. And I know that there's so many other people that would also love that. And you could also sell the pattern. Like you could make it not only like
That's
you could
true.
sell the cozies, but you could sell the pattern for people who want to do it themselves and have more creative liberty
Mhm.
and freedom.
And then
There's a
money.
lot of
You know,
crafty disabled girlies out there. I know
there
that.
are. I love to crochet. I love crocheting. I have
I
my own
want
Etsy
to
shop.
pick it up. I want to pick it up so
I
bad.
could I could teach you so easily. You'll
I
get it
want
done
to.
so fast.
I know how to do like the first strand. It's like when you get to the second, like the second row, that it's like the hardest part, and I
Yeah.
my brain is not there yet, but we're practicing. Like we're
We're
gonna get
practicing, we'll get it. You
yes.
know? And then,
Yeah.
maybe we can make some cute hearing aid merch.
I would literally cry.
Cute.
I've been wanting to make hearing aid like covers or stickers for so long, just something that like kind of is an affordable option because there's so many amazing like fine jewelry hearing
Mm,
aid covers that I'm obsessed with from so many amazing brands that like we've even shared on our blog. But I am freshly out of college. I am broke, married
fair.
girly trying to pay
Same.
her rent and start a
Me.
business. I think that's something that's like I honestly haven't talked about a lot, which is like I'm excited to like come on here is because a lot of this stuff has been very professional and I have to like
Mm,
I'm presenting as the
right.
business where this is a little more personal. It's like I think people think I'm like a millionaire that just like makes cute content, but I also have like three other jobs.
I love. I love
Yeah.
that.
So it's like I have so many great ideas like, oh, I want to make hearing aid stickers or I want to like collaborate with a nail sticker brand that wants to make stickers, and like advertise towards like the
Right.
deaf and hard of hearing communities, but it's just so hard to like sell that to like able-bodied people sometimes, which is like totally understandable. Like I wouldn't have thought about it if I wasn't a
Sure.
hearing aid user, but like anyone of any age or gender can use fun hearing aid stickers. Like it doesn't matter who you are. Like that would be so fun.
Also, the little kids with hearing aids who like, I don't know. Okay, you got your
Yeah.
hearing aids in college, right?
Yes, I did.
I've been wearing mine since I was probably like 4.
Yeah.
And when you're little, being different is not cool.
No.
So I did not want to wear my hearing aid. I was like, take it out. Gross. I don't want to wear it. I'd rather just not hear.
Yeah.
So it was a struggle for my mom to make it an exciting thing. But if there was a brand out there that like made my hearing aid cute, I would 100% have worn my hearing aid so much more than I did when I was a kid. Like that's so cute and so fun. Imagine like
Yeah.
little stickers like for princesses and like, or like Avengers. Like that'd be so cool.
Well, I know
Sorry.
that
This
like
is like another small business that we're gonna start.
I know, it's like we're just gonna go in as entrepreneurial girlies together.
Right. We are.
I'm
We're
so
gonna
happy
start this
with
business.
that. So I was born hard of hearing, grew up hard of hearing, and then I later am in the process of a Meniere's disease diagnosis. So I have fluctuating sensorineural hearing loss. So it's kind of like I have like a weird journey with my hearing journey. Obviously, it wasn't until college I got hearing aids, but one of my best friends growing up, like I met her in fifth grade, she was deaf and wore hearing aids. So I remember this is so funny. I'm a fashion girly. I love accessories, and like I remember she would like change out her ear molds a couple times a year, or like maybe not a year, but like every year or so. And every time she'd get like a new ear mold color, I was like, oh, I feel bad saying her name. She doesn't mind. Alyssa, like what hearing aid mold did you get today?
Yeah.
Like what color? She totally doesn't
It's
mind
like
me.
braces.
Did I say her name? But no, she has like a public Instagram and stuff. She is like a model for us for the Deaf Girl.
I love
But
it.
she's so cute. Alyssa, if you're watching, like you are the cutest, most precious deaf girlie on the planet. She's the one I
Shout
learned a
out
ton.
Alyssa.
Shout out Alyssa. But yeah, she had the cutest hearing aids on the planet, and I can't remember like I think they were like purple or something. She had like some cool color growing up. Like she was cool. Like she was so cool. And I
She
was like,
was the moment.
if I
Yeah.
ever get hearing aids, I want Alyssa's hearing aids. And now that I'm an adult, I am still replicating Alyssa's hearing aids. And
Love
she
it.
still has cool ones. But yeah. No, it's super fun because I did have like that exposure very young and like because like assistive listening devices and mobility aids were so normalized luckily in my school, like I never thought of it as like something that wasn't cool or
I love
unwanted.
that.
Yeah, like it was just very normalized. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So now I'm an adult, like I'm trying to push that idea. Like we're a very like feminine presenting brand, just because that's how I present myself. So we're like cutie little hearing aids is like our kind of like our slogan sometimes. We're like, hi, we're cutie little hearing aids. And I never want it to be like a negative thing. It's very
Right.
positive. But I'm just kind of girly pop energy. So sometimes I like intimidate people with
No, that's why I was drawn to you guys because I was like, oh, that's my energy. I was
Yes.
like, I think they like me.
Oh, I'm obsessed with literally. I had seen your content way before I even knew you were hard of hearing. So I was like obsessed with you, and then I saw you were hard of hearing, and I think I looked at my friend Grace. She also is like one of our in-house graphic designers. So I was like, Grace, she's hard of hearing. We should ask her. We should ask her to do our Takeover Tuesday. We should ask her to do this. But we're obsessed with you. No, we're absolutely love
Thank
the
you.
content you're putting out. So no, it's
It's
always my favorite when you follow someone and then you find out that they're deaf or hard of hearing.
yeah.
Um, do you know Steffi? She's in the disabled community and
Yeah.
uses a yes. I met her at an influencer event, and only a couple weeks prior had I known she was also hard of hearing.
I
And so I
didn't
was
know
like,
she was
oh
hard
my
of hearing.
gosh. Yeah, I don't know if she identifies as hard of hearing or deaf, so I want to be respectful of that. But I
Yeah,
think hard of hearing. But she uses a Baja. She just posted about it yesterday for Cochlear Implant Day. Yeah. But she's so precious. And I remember being like, I just respect her so much. She's like just killing it and the disability representation and
I love
awareness,
her.
like content creation world. And so when I went up to her, I was like in New York and I was like, hi, you don't know me. You don't know me. My name's Ryien. Like, I absolutely love what you're doing. Like, just like the narrative that you're pushing for the disabled community. And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've seen your page. I think I was about to simply pass away. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. And she like was like, let me pull it up. And like she followed me on my personal or something. And she asked me for a picture. And I was like about to simply melt into the ground. Yeah, that was like such a humbling experience for me because I was like, oh my gosh. But no, she's so cool. Like I didn't know she was hard of hearing at first, but I've always loved her content. So it's kind of like a club. I kind of joke, it's like, oh, we're in the Deaf Girl Club. But yeah, I love
Me and my
it.
friend Wes, who's also another disability activist, him and I call it like the disability club. And we're like, it's so easy to join the club, guys. It's so
So
easy.
easy. And you can join it at any time.
Anytime, any age,
Everything.
we're happy to have you.
I know. I feel bad because I try to be really sensitive to the fact that like, if someone who has like progressive hearing loss, not someone who's necessarily born deaf, or even some people who are born deaf, like as you get older and like your hearing loss progresses, like it can be a scarier, uncomfortable time. And I really want to be serious about that. And I really want to spotlight like you are allowed to feel those emotions. Like that is totally fine. Like that is a literal grieving process for some people. But at the same time, I do like our brand was made to celebrate deafness and hearing loss in the hard of hearing community. It's so hard because I want to balance both and like kind of create space for that, but also show people like there is like excitement and hope around finding community and like what the deaf and hard of hearing community looks like. I know I just watched the episode with you and Alyssa, and you're talking about kind of that idea of like elitism and how sometimes the deaf community can feel like very small and interwoven. And it's so hard because there's so much oppression and push in eugenics and such terrible dark things that have been forced onto the deaf community that's made it become that. And I think a lot of the older deaf community members like they firsthand experience that, and like I do not want to overshadow their experiences and what they've gone through to pave the way so us like younger deaf and hard of hearing community members don't have to experience what they did. But at the same time, like it is a different world. It's a new generation. And there's a new generation of literal kids coming up and trying to learn more about sign language or open captioning or hearing aids or the deaf community in general, just like accommodation support, accessibility. And so we have to be so sensitive to that because they're the ones kind of absorbing this information. And if we're being just unaware of our like words and our agenda kind of towards like how we want to present the deaf community, it can be really damaging to the next generation of deaf and hard of hearing individuals.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you touched on something really important there, and something that actually my one of my best friends, Jane Mattingly, also brought up in her episode with me that's coming out this week. So for everybody listening and watching, it's last week. Um, so she brought up something really interesting. She has a book that's coming out in mid-March. I should know the date. I don't know the date. But she's a book coming out in mid-March called Body Grief, and or called This Is Body Grief.
Cool. Yeah.
And it's extremely powerful, and I'm really excited to read it. But it talked about that very thing where she was born with her condition but didn't find out about it until she was in her mid to late 20s, and then became physically disabled and also started using mobility aids like walker and wheelchair and things like that. And so she talks about the stages of body grief and weaves it in with her studies. She has a master's in some form of psychology.
Mhm.
And so she weaves it in with that and kind of the stages of grief, but in this, it's body grief. And so she always says that, the first couple stages are denial, and we all know the stages of grief in itself when you lose someone or something that you really love. But this is grieving your body and what it once was, or what it never was for some of us,
Yeah.
what it could have been, you know? And so for her, she talks about the fact that you're kind of always in a stage of body grief. You never are done or over it. You get to a stage and then you're really comfortable in that stage just for life to throw you back into another stage.
That is so
And so I think that's really it's very you can really apply it to what you were just talking about, which was the stages of body grief in tandem with your hearing.
yeah.
And so people who were maybe have progressive hearing loss or different things like that, that is a real that's a real stage of body grief that you're just constantly being thrown back into. You finally get comfortable with your hearing the way it is, and then it's just changing all the time. And me personally, I can't imagine what that experience is like. I was born hard of hearing and was not in the hard of hearing community at all, or the deaf community at all, until college. And so um, I then I was thrown into a different stage of body grief, which was not hiding my hearing loss and identifying as deaf and hard of hearing and identifying with that community that was just opened up to me, opened up a whole new world. And so I think that's really interesting is like accepting this part of yourself and also making it into like a girly pop, very exciting, accepting energy, but also respecting people who maybe don't feel like that and don't feel that way. Was there ever a time in your life where you didn't love the fact that you were hard of hearing or like didn't accept it?
For sure. I think my story is very unique, and I kind of hope to write a book about it one day because there's just so much to go into that no one ever has time for. But the kind of overview was I was born premature, so I have a lot of chronic illnesses, autoimmune. I'm hard of hearing. I was basically like, it was a miracle I even came into this world. And so I grew up just really struggling in the education system. I am very privileged and I'm very aware of my privilege. I was put into a private school. So I had a very special individualized education plan, an IEP. So I was an IEP kid, super fun. And I was blessed to have, for the most part, really great, just we called them resource teachers. And some of them just understood that whatever was going on in my life just was very unique and a special case. And it wasn't just, oh, she has ADD or ADHD, which was like probably the most like mainstream like accommodation plan for my school specifically. They tested me for all that and they were really like confused because they were like, you don't have ADHD, you don't have ADD. They said that like they didn't believe I had autism or anything like that. And so I had all these labels like thrown at me for the first years of my life that when they told me I didn't, that was a grievance process because it was like, well, I thought I was A, B, and C, and now you're telling me I'm not. Are you going to take my accommodations away? Because I was struggling. And then they kind of just told me, like, oh, she's just not very smart. Like, she's just not getting it. Like, they kind of felt bad because I was a really sweet kid, but I was silent, like, very quiet, like, very introverted. Like, I did not enjoy school. Like, I'd go home most days crying. I remember, like, specific instances and, like, maybe, like, second grade where I would just get overstimulated and stand up and like lay on the floor. Like I don't remember this like very vividly, but like I was just so like confused. I would just like go and have like a panic attack basically, and then I would get in trouble for acting out or not listening. In reality, I could not hear the instructions. I couldn't fully take in like the course content. Like I could hear things but not hear them well, and I would get listening fatigue. But we didn't have those words in like 2007. Like no. It's like that wasn't a thing. So they kind of would just take me out of the classroom and then they would put me one on one with this amazing resource teacher who I was absolutely drawn to. And then everything made sense and my homework went faster and they were like, we don't understand why when we put you in this certain environment, you're doing really well. And then when we put you back in the classroom, like you're not connecting with people in the way we want. And like they would do the popcorn reading. I think that's like the most universal deaf girly problem is like popcorn reading gave me so much anxiety. And I was always put in like there was like different groups, like the really experienced reading group. And then there was like okay, these kids cannot get it together. I was in the not get it together group, which was always the boys goofing around. So I was always isolated from my friends, isolated from making connections, and they put me with people who then bullied me. And so I just did not do well. And I remember like crying all the time. And then I had a ton of ear problems. So I don't know why we did not connect the ear problems with this whole like individualized education plan not going well route. I had ear tubes, which led to perfs, temporal perfs. The perforations then grew bigger, and we did surgery after surgery. It did not go well, did not work. They would just kept rupturing. I think my eardrums have ruptured at least like 3 times each, and maybe a total of like 5 times
Oh
total.
my gosh.
Yeah, I have severe medical trauma from my ears. I would just wake up in the middle of the night screaming, like feeling like someone was, hurting me in my ear, and I would like cry to my mom. Like I wouldn't understand what was happening because I was so young. I'd go to like the doctor, and what should have been like outpatient surgery at the ER was just like dismissed and thrown like Tylenol at me, and I would just wait, and then we would schedule a surgery and get it done. And this continued through like middle school. And so finally, I think maybe I was like in third or fourth grade, I had one of my last surgeries, and I had a severe anaphylactic reaction to the anesthesia. So me, my mom, I also woke up during that surgery, so they didn't give me enough. I woke up in the middle of the surgery, then had anaphylaxis. So I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. And like, I was just a kid. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is terrifying. So we kind of just gave up. And so for 10 years, I didn't have any more procedures. So I had no eardrums for like a decade basically. And that's when I started experiencing vertigo attacks, loss of hearing. They thought
Because
it
it's
was
the
an
inner
ear
ear,
virus.
yeah.
Yeah, and when you treat an ear virus, they put you on prednisone, which is a steroid. And so they thought it was an ear virus because it went away. But the funny part is you treat Meniere's disease with prednisone. So every time they'd put me on it, I would get better. And then when they would take me off, I would eat salt and chocolate and caffeine, and it would come right back. And so I remember watching Switched at Birth. Like, I loved that show. I don't know if you've seen it. So good, comfort show. But this guy on there, he has Meniere's disease. And I just watched it because I was always drawn to American Sign Language. And then I saw this guy, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so me. And then it kept going, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so me. And then I was like, that's literally me. Okay, there's something wrong. And I remember that was like right before I got to college. I was in high school. My first date, I went profoundly deaf. My first date ever with a boy. Um, and it was so embarrassing. I just kept asking him questions so he wouldn't ask me any questions so that way I could control the conversation. I became really good at like hiding and masking
Mhm.
my disability. And so I'd be like, Mom, is it normal to get like tinnitus and like lose your hearing? My mom also has many years without realizing it. And she's like, yeah, that's totally normal. So like we just that's how it was. And so when I got to college, I got connected in the ASL program at my local college. And some of the deaf and hard of hearing professors finally just pulled me aside and they were like, girly, we think you're like deaf. We think you need to go see a doctor. And so I left the doctor I'd been seeing for like basically 15 years and went to a different doctor. And they were like, you've been experiencing malpractice. They've caused more damage to your ears than should have happened. I had a like mass in my ear from scar tissue that they thought could be cancerous, which it wasn't. That was like super terrifying. Like I just had so much trauma, and they saw like how I physically reacted just when someone touched my ear or got near my ear. Like I can't get water in my ear. I don't swim. Like I can swim, but I don't want to. Like I shower weird. Like I have to adapt my whole life around this medical trauma. And so they were like, you need a new doctor ASAP, and we need to evaluate your hearing. So I went to a new audiologist an hour away that my deaf best friend Alyssa, who I shared about a little bit earlier, she sent me to her audiologist, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, Ryien, like you cannot hear to save your life. Like he was like, how have you literally gone through all of childhood and your whole like education so far without accommodations fitting to hearing loss? And he was like, that explains everything actually. So learning, that's kind of like a weird thing to hear. It was like, I want to say I was sad, but I wasn't because it was like, finally, it was like that breath of relief, like, oh my gosh, that's why I had problems. And it's like, everything clicked and I felt like I had been gaslighting myself. I had been gaslit by other doctors saying like, no, your hearing's fine for years. And then when they like affirmed that, it was like something inside me shifted and it was like anger. It was like justified anger of like,
Valid.
I've been burned by the medical system. And that wasn't the only thing. Like I've done that like through like my chronic illness journey. Like it's the same thing over and over. And so I jumped straight like full send into like deaf hard of hearing identity discovery because I was like, I need to make up for lost time. I'm sick of this. Like, we need to get the accommodations where I need. Luckily, had been very privileged with people who have equipped me to like advocate for myself and ask for accommodations. This was just a new kind of accommodation. So I immediately like jumped into that mode. And I remember talking to some of my deaf friends, like hard of hearing friends, but they all were like they used voice on, they didn't sign. It was very like just mainstream school kid things. And then my deaf mentors that I had mentioned who were in the ASL program, like took me under their wing. They like were like feeding me sign language, making me go to deaf church with them, like just full immersion. And so I quickly picked up ASL. But I remember meeting the deaf and hard of hearing community girls and like hearing about like the like elitism from like other communities. So like I watched a podcast called What the Deaf, the best podcast. I absolutely love it. That podcast changed my life and it really like opened up stuff. But I was terrified because I was like, I've heard about this elitism they've experienced at Gallaudet and like other communities. What if these girls hate me? Like I was so worried that they were gonna be like, ew, she's not profoundly deaf. She has a hearing aid. Like, we don't want to hang out with her. Like that was my full expectation. And I know that you've experienced stuff like that. And Alyssa, who was on here a couple weeks ago, experienced that. And so I was following Alyssa from the beginning. Like she was one of the first people I followed too. And she was a huge cheerleader in my corner, always just encouraging me and like pushing me to just do it anyways. And I joke because my now best friend Grace, she has RBF and we joke about it all the time openly. This is not mean. She jokes about it too. And so I remember being like, oh, she already hates me. Like she does not like me. But I pushed myself and walked up to all the deaf girlies and I had like been signing and I asked my ASL teacher if I could give my friend a sign name. And I was already in the deaf community. They knew I was like part of hearing deaf, used hearing aids, used sign language, like very involved in the community for several years. And so I used my friend's sign name when talking about her, and one of the hearing girls in the interpreting program like whipped her head and was like, you can't give sign names. You are not allowed to do that. And it wasn't even a deaf person, it was a hearing person, like an interpreting major. And like my face fell because this was like the first time I've ever walked up to these girls talking to them. And like they're like the popular like ASL club girlies. And I was like, I have messed up because I didn't want to like cross a boundary or did it. I have this is bad. So I like totally just went back in my shell, wrapped up the conversation, left the signing social sobbing, and I went and sat in the hallway. And there was a girl sitting in the hallway, and she looked really upset. And so I sat next to her, and because we knew each other like in passing from sign language club, and I was like, ugh, and she was like, what? And I was like, this happened, and I'm so upset. And she was like, no, literally, like I don't feel like I fit in either. And she goes, I'm hard of hearing, and I go, no way. And we kind of started bonding over our mutual trauma because she has a lot of ear trauma and different things. And so once I talked to her, it kind of like I went from being like a victim to like, no, like this is just like a thing that happens in the deaf community all the time. And so we kind of took that, and I was like, I wonder how many deaf and hard of hearing girls are on campus. So I started just like curiously asking around. I met some girls, and like I slowly became friends with the deaf and hard of hearing, like clicking at like my campus. They were so sweet. It was like a misunderstanding. I explained. One of my teachers stepped in and was like, "Hey, like to a hearing student, like you can't say that to deaf students. Like that's not appropriate." Like it was fixed. I'm friends with that person now. Like it's not a big deal now, but at the time it was. But over time, like girls would come up to me in the library and be like, "Oh, I like your earrings," and then notice I had a hearing aid, and be like, "Oh my gosh, I wear hearing aids." And over like the course of 3 months, accidentally and also kind of just searching around, there was 15 deaf and hard of hearing women on our campus. 15. And
Wow.
only 3 were using accommodation support through the Office of Disability and Inclusion. So I was like, oh my gosh, like these girls don't know they can ask for accommodations. Like, what is happening? And so of course, like I'm the girly pop energy, like very intense. I'm very aware of that. I was just like, hey, why don't you ask for accommodations? And then I kind of made a Google sheet of all the different reasons and like their stories. And I met with them one on one for coffee like every few weeks. And then accidentally started like what we joke is like a deaf girl club on campus. And then I was like, we should like talk about our stories. Like this is like very normal. This is a normal thing. And so in September of 2022, during Deaf Awareness Week, we launched an online blog and all those girls like rally behind me. They're in the pictures and it was so cool because people responded so quickly and people started sharing and we grew way too fast. I had no idea this was going to happen. It was not supposed to be like this. It was just like we were just talking about our experiences and now like we have over like 7,000 like amazing people in our community and most of them are deaf hard of hearing individuals. And so we did a spin-off business called the Deaf Social. So both of them, they're like sister companies. One is for mostly women who need resources or people who identify as like female. Like we want to make sure they feel safe and loved because women are a minority. And so when you're dealing with someone who may be disabled, deaf, and like female, that's intersectionality. And so we want to protect that space where it's female focused, but also providing another space for all individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing or deaf hard of hearing plus. Like that's so important to me. That's kind of like how it came to be. I feel like that was really long-winded, but
No, I loved it. I love hearing people's stories, and that's kind of like why I started putting people on my podcast because there are so many. I feel like you and I are both very public with our lives,
for
but there
sure.
are things that people don't know, you
Mhm.
know? And there are things that maybe we're not like hiding intentionally, but
Yeah.
we don't get a chance to talk about. And so that's why I love bringing people on to specifically, I'm like, no, talk for 20 minutes. Like I want to hear what you have to say and like what your story is and how you came to be in this position and why you do what you do and why you love what you do, you know? So I loved it. I think I really identify with a lot of parts of your story, but specifically where you were told that like you were kind of in your own world and you weren't hearing instructions. Because that's what happened to me when I was really young, before they knew I was deaf. They knew I had vision. They knew I had vision issues and vision loss, but they didn't know about the hearing loss
Mhm.
because every time I was tested for hearing loss, I would pass because I could hear out of my right ear. But I don't know what they were doing 20 years ago. I don't know if they were testing like each ear individually or if they were just testing hearing in general. I have no idea how it works. But
I think they got lazy, honestly. I think they're just used to
really,
their routine and they're used to like profoundly deaf kids, and sometimes they just don't. They may see something, but they're like, oh, and it's probably not like a big deal. Because I see a lot of, I've sat down with a lot of moms. I mentor mothers with deaf and hard of hearing children as well. And one of them said that like their baby didn't pass the hearing test. And they're like, oh, it was a mistake. Like, we'll just test that child again in like a couple weeks. And then like they didn't realize until like a couple weeks later that the child was deaf. And it's like, why would you just kind of brush that off?
write
And
that
like,
off. Yeah.
it's literally right there. And then they don't follow up with resources either, which is another thing I'm super passionate about. There's just, I feel like I don't want to discredit like obviously the medical industry or like anything like that, but it is true that there's a lot of like neglect and like
Yeah.
rushed appointments. I've
Yeah.
experienced it all 23 years of my life. I'm like a doctor's appointment expert now. Like I know how to work the system and I can tell you within 5 seconds of meeting someone if they're going to listen to me or not.
Yep.
It's insane.
And if they're not, out.
Out.
I kick them out.
I don't
They're
even
gone.
waste my time anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's like just give me the
I'm like,
bill.
okay, thanks so much. But
Exactly.
did you know we're the same age?
Oh my gosh, I did not.
I'm almost 23.
That's so exciting.
I
I love
know.
that. It's such a, like, interesting age because it's like kind of like after college, and then like people still don't take you seriously as like a full adult sometimes, and you're just like figuring out like this weird age range, and like it's so
Well,
weird.
also, I feel like as girlies with like girl bosses with
Yeah,
like small businesses
yeah,
and like you run your the several small businesses, I run several small businesses, and they're all like based on us. Like they rely on us
yeah,
individually to carry them. And going into meetings with other people, even other women who are like generations older, they
yeah.
don't take you seriously. They're
They don't
like,
always.
"Whoa, you're doing what? You're huh?" Like I had one um pretty, I mean, it was an activist I looked up to. She's several decades older than me. And she looked at me and she was like, I was like, yeah, I'm a disability rights activist. And she was like, so what's your definition of advocate versus activist? Because personally, I don't really see you as an activist. I don't think you earn that title. And
That's
she was
why.
like, are you like in the streets protesting? And I was like, no, because that's not accessible. And it kind of like took her aback. And she was like, oh, well, my generation, that's how we did it. So like I don't really see social media as
I
like
feel like
activism.
advocacy and activism has also evolved with the times. Like
Yeah,
I studied
that part.
strategic communication in college, and a lot of our stuff was talking about how like online platforms, like they just reach so many more people. Like
Yeah,
that's like the whole point. And I know that like even for like the 504 protests, like I was like planning on going and like working on that. Like it was going to be really hard, but there was only like a week notice. And then finally, I know PAVE was like, actually, like now that we're thinking about it, as much as we all want to, we wish we could be present in a safe way and like, voice our opinions. Like at the same time, there is a lot to be said about traveling arrangements not being safe for disabled people. Like, I know you probably already have problems with like flying with mobility aids. That's not an easy task. Like, you almost have to expect something to get broken or mishandled or expect a negative experience. And then if you don't, it's like a fluke and you're like, oh, that was great. Like, it's like a world class experience, but it's like basically the bare minimum, you know what I mean? And it's like for me, like I'm chronically ill. Like I probably would have passed out. Like you have to be so careful. And it's like, it's a good thing activism has changed over the last few years because it's
yeah,
safer and it's prioritizing like the disabled community. Like we, I mean, it's hard. Like when we voice our opinions and we voice what matters to us, it's deemed as political when it's personal. Like our disability is like, I know Tiffany was talking about like we are seen as like radical or political, and it's like how is me just existing political? Like I'm just a person. It is personal.
just a girl.
I'm just
Please.
a girl. I'm just a girl trying to survive out here, literally. So it's so frustrating. It's like, no, Cassie, like you are an activist. You are outwardly speaking out against discrimination and you're speaking out against ableism, but you're doing it in a way that's so loving. And that's why I feel safe coming on here and having like our little girl Gavin session, like just hanging out because like the way you hold responsibility is so crucial and so amazing, but at the same time, you do it in a way that you do it with respect and love. And I think that's something that's really hard because we have all these really big feelings and we're like, oh my gosh. Like I had a guy literally look at me the other day. He was like asking me about like the deaf community. And I was like trying to like mentor him some because like I have college students that ask me questions for class. And I was like telling him like how a lot of our like medical system and accommodations and things were actually from like organizations who are based in like historical ableism and eugenics, and it's so frustrating. And I was telling him like, Alexander Graham Bell was literally a eugenist, and he's the one that was researching hearing aids and like, kind of forced American Sign Language out of the school systems in America and stuff like that, preventing it from even like progressing because he had a deaf mother and he married a deaf wife, but they said like, hey, like we don't believe in like intermarrying, and that's like a terrible concept. And then the guy was like, oh, well, I kind of get it, and I'm like, but you shouldn't. No, that's not the
Trying to get it.
That's
No.
not the point. I was like, actually, really, I really looked at him and I was like, but you shouldn't. And I feel bad picking on him. Like, he's learning. But at the same time, like, it's my responsibility to be stern and be like, no, we should not see the lines or dots connecting here. That was not what I just said. It's about, like, he was like, how can I support the community? And he wants to, like, fix us. And I know that a huge part of you is like, disability is not meant to be fixed. Like, what needs to be fixed is the system that's letting us down. And I told him, I was like, it's great that you want to provide more mental health resources. I think that's amazing. I don't think there's enough out there for disabled, deaf, hard of hearing individuals. But at the same time, those resources are not meant to fix us. It's about providing access to the resources that already exist. And if you find some like magical thing out that maybe helps us out, that's great. But like you need to treat a deaf patient the same way you would treat a hearing patient with different accessibility standards. Like a huge thing that for the deaf girl like that we push is like visualizing a world where like accessibility surpasses the baseline. And like that's so annoying. Like if like ADA standards are the baseline, how can we go above and beyond and make it a customer service like experience?
Hmm.
That's the Stratcom marketing girly in me. I love just personalized customer experiences. But like we are not an afterthought. Like our accommodations and accessibility is not an afterthought. It's a part of like how we access the world, and equal access is again is not political. It's just I don't know, like it's just basic humanity. I don't know. I'm
I
super
know.
passionate.
I'm like running through titles of what I could title this, and you just said like five quotes that I know I'm gonna have to choose from later of like what I want to title this episode because it's so true. I mean, I say all the time. I said something the other day in a video that really made a lot of people upset, but I stick to it. I don't say things in videos that I don't believe. Like
Yeah.
I am 100% truthful in all of my videos. Now I can be wrong, but
Yes.
but I 100% am so truthful to my experience, to my own lived experience, as well as other people's, friends of mine. And I tell the truth 100% of the time. And I said something the other day that was like, we don't need your prayers, we need your what is it? What did I say? Dang it. I said we don't need your prayers, we need your we need accessibility. We don't need your prayers,
Yeah.
we need accessibility. Or we need access or something like that. People got
Yeah.
so upset.
I don't
But I was like,
Right. Because as someone I identify as Christian, I'm in the modern age church. I literally this is so funny, Cassie. I'm about to post like I just posted a blog post that I haven't even shared on my Instagram because I'm terrified because I have had literal church abuse in the past, like physical church abuse from my disability.
yep,
And I had
and I
to
will.
leave a church. I had to leave a church. And as someone who like I don't like identifying with like the whole Christian body sometimes. Like it makes me not want to because of the like information, the abuse, the spiritual neglect in the church. But at the same time, like if you say you are coming to serve someone with the hands and feet of Jesus, if that's something you ascribe to and believe, that means you need to be actually doing it. And I just wrote a whole entire blog post on my personal website about it. And I am so scared to share it because there's two reasons. One, I know that people from my old church will read it, and I do have a lot of respect for them. I don't think all
Sure.
of them are bad. It's very few people that did it, but it's how the church didn't support me in the way I needed to for accessibility. Like I tried to bring in an interpreter, and that interpreter told me they didn't feel comfortable because they didn't feel respected as an LGBTQIA plus member, and I respect them wholeheartedly, and I thought my community did as well, and then their actions didn't speak. So that interpreter left, and when I went to meet with someone, I had to jump through hoops to get to this meeting, and I knew these people, and I shared my story. They had no idea anything about me, and it's like they had known me since I was a kid, and it's like I openly voice about everything I've gone through. Maybe I didn't have names or titles of things like disability or deafness, but at the same time, like you've watched me grow up and suffer. And now when I'm coming to you, when I need accommodation support, you say it's too hard or it doesn't match your brand or it's too much when I'm offering to literally step in and do these things and resources for a local community program. Like I am willing to take on all the financial burden, the physical burden of carrying out those plans and doing everything for you, but you're scared that my one person is gonna block the stage, like completely off the side, is gonna block the stage from response time. When I'm like, if you want people to like respond with prayer, why can't there be someone there who understands sign language to do so? And it's like they told me like it wasn't a good fit. And I was like, yeah, it's not a good fit because like I need to be somewhere that feeds me spiritually, emotionally, like has support and believes in reaching people with disabilities and making them feel loved and safe and welcomed into a space that's titled as like a space that is open for everyone, like if God loves them. And that's not true when you're not providing those resources.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wrote a whole blog post about it if anyone wants to read it. It's kind of this is the first time I've literally ever talked about it, like ever. So this is the first space someone here's my opinions on that. So that's a little bit hot take.
No, I
I
agree.
love
I grew up in the church, and I grew up in the church. I was a volunteer for a long time. Um, and I was a kids pastor. I was also a youth group leader. I was in the youth group. I was very involved in church, and I experienced a lot of ableism, unfortunately. Like
so sad.
I went to a few different churches. The one that I ended up, the last one that I went to, I loved. Like I'm still such good friends with so many people there. But I left in all honesty because of how they handled COVID. And I was not like I'm chronically ill and immunocompromised, and at that point we didn't know very much about COVID and how it affected people, and it was 2020, and I will say those people fought for me so hard and I love them for it, but they were just not handling protocols very responsibly. They were still gathering by the masses when we didn't understand how COVID was spread or anything about it. And at that point, we thought COVID could literally kill me.
Yeah.
So,
And it
um,
could. It's not
and it
thought
could. I've had it
sometimes
twice, but hey, it still could.
it will.
Yeah. And so at that point was terrified of it, and I was so depressed and needed desperately. I needed friends and I needed community, but I needed that in a safe way. And they were my family at that point. They were my chosen family, but they weren't supportive in the way that I thought they were gonna be. And so it really broke my heart to have to leave, but I had to. And I experienced a lot of ableism over the years of people praying for me to be healed and at church camp and people like bawling their eyes out because the Holy Spirit wasn't overtaking me and I wasn't being healed right then and there. And I was
That's
like, guys,
more
that's
to
not the way it
like
works. It's not the
that's
way
another
it
thing.
works.
That's another thing I've talked about in my blog post. I I experienced a lot of like very intense like situations and life circumstances at a very young age that were really dark. Like it was really hard to handle for a young child. And I was about like 16, 17. But like as a Christian, I believe like the Lord was using that situation and speaking to me in a very clear way to keep me safe, like out of pure safety. And so I started sharing my story and just about like how like like there's hope in these dark situations. And so I started speaking, and then like I became very popular. Like again, I wasn't very popular in school. Like I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And then I went through like severe bullying to the point where like I almost dropped out of school. And I finally like started making friends, and like people wanted to be around me because they saw me as like this spiritual leader. I went to like a private Christian school, so like it was also super toxic how like there was elitism in like how religious you were. And so it was like really toxic, honestly. And I people wanted to hang out with me. So of course I was like, oh well, like the more I get closer to God, like the more popular I am, or the more people that will respect me. And so when I started public speaking, people kept inviting me to events and like giving me these things. And I wasn't doing them because of that. I was doing them because I felt like I was called to say something. But when I felt like I wasn't supposed to say something, I didn't want to just like start talking. Like that's silly. Like I don't like talking without purpose. So I told them, I was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable anymore. Like this was just a very weird fluke of things that happened. Like I'm so glad I was able to share my story and make people feel safe, seen and heard, but I don't feel comfortable sharing any longer. They kind of took that as like backsliding, and I didn't realize that. I thought I was just being obedient to what I felt like I had to do. And so a couple months later, when I started experiencing the decline of my health, like that step back was good for me. Like I started experiencing like intense like period symptoms where I'm like, this is probably like 6 years ago, and now I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. But I believe I might have endometriosis. And so, like, going through that and passing out at school in the bathroom and like intense bleeding and all these things. And then I started having Meniere's disease symptoms. And it's like they basically ascribed to me that like I had demon oppression and that like some secret sin cycles in my life were causing that. And they didn't know what they were. But if I just confessed them, it would go away and like it'd be fine again. And so I believe them because, like, when you're sick or you're hurting, you're supposed to depend on whatever community that you're in. Like, that community was my community, like the Christian community. So, my local church, I was like, guys, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I trust you. What do I do? And then when they, like, were like, oh, well, you have to do this, I was kind of like, Lord, like, am I doing some weird thing in my private life? Is someone in my family doing something where it's like hurting me physically? Like, have I brought this on myself? Because I was very like introspective. Like, I thought, like, well, maybe I must be having to do that if that's what the people I trust are saying. And then, like, both in my body and like in like a spiritual sense, I was like, no, like, I'm not saying I was perfect. Like, obviously, like, I make mistakes every single day. Everyone does. But like, I was doing a pretty good job. Like, I was reading my Bible like way more than most people that time in my life because I was single really and doing all this stuff, and I just started dating my now husband. And the church, like, basically, I feel like this is the situation. I don't know for sure. I feel like some people had spread some information that I thought was private between me and some people, and some other people found out. And it wasn't a situation that I was like really involved in. It was just like surrounding me, and I think they felt like they needed to evoke a response because of that. And so we were at a serving event because I had served for over 10 years, a decade. And I was like, I am so excited. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. I'm gonna eat a hamburger and I am gonna just like chill and listen to some music by a bonfire. Like it sounds like a great time. Again, social girly here. And then in the middle of this bonfire, my now husband, then boyfriend of like 3 days, was sitting behind me, and I was sitting with some girls that I did not know. And again, deaf girly things. So I was trying to pay attention, and then someone said like, "Oh, they had a word from the Lord to do this thing," and I was like, "Oh, cool, great." And then everyone looked at me, and I was like you know when you do like the little 360, like your head's just kind of turning, and you're like, "Oh, the word was for me." And then they were like, basically what I told you, like I had some secret sin cycle in my life, whatever. And they asked me to come down so they could lay hands on me because they thought like I would experience like healing from that. And then I was like shaking my head, and then the people around me grabbed me and like by the like elbows and physically forced me up onto my feet, and I was like shaking because I was embarrassed. Like it's embarrassing. And I walked to the front. And I was just standing there. And again, I was like, Lord, like, did I do something wrong? Like, I am genuinely like trying to believe that like maybe this is elicited, like that the people around me that I thought were safe people, like, would not betray me like this or like hurt me like this without like talking to me in private first or asking me what's going on in my life. And then the two people, one of the people that like called me out, I guess, like I did not know them. Like I do not know them. They are not someone that's in my personal life, like someone I confide in. I literally talked to them like 2 times before this happened. And my now husband, then boyfriend, was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening?" I was like looking at him for like help, and it was like too late. Like brother cannot do anything. So he just had to watch it. And I remember like they prayed for me and then handed me the mic. Like, what are you gonna say? Like, because they wanted me to confess something. I don't even remember what I
Front of
said.
all these people?
Yeah, there was over 100 people there. Over 100 people. I was, and I know these people. These are not just random people. Like these are people that have known me my whole life. Like have seen everything. So like this is mortifying. I'm shaking. Basically blacked out. I don't remember anything I said. I don't. I just remember how I felt. And leaving that, like we left shortly after and we got in the car and I was like, my first response was like, my boyfriend's gonna break up with me. He's gonna think I'm psychotic. Like he's gonna think I'm doing some terrible thing to elicit all of this hoopla. And he was like, Ryien, this is why I married this man. He's such a good man. But he was like, Ryien, you didn't do anything wrong. Like that was weird and that wasn't okay. And like for him to say that, that one like made me breathe. But I was like crying. I was like, I am so embarrassed. But I stayed and I stayed and I experienced that and then put all this like kind of effort in thinking like I was the problem. And then when it wasn't so, I just kind of backed off. Like I was like, okay, like I guess if I've tried to bring in interpreters and all these things are going wrong, like I can't control that. And finally, once that meeting ended and they were like, this just like we don't feel comfortable with you on the serving team to like respond with people and like love on people like you're called to do, like that's not the best fit. And like some people had like basically like said like, oh, we don't think we want you to like continue serving with like the girls you'd been with for 6 years, like moving up, like we don't know if you'd be a good middle school person. And it was like all these little things kept building and it was like you guys literally like were begging me to do all this stuff for you. And as soon as I didn't feel comfortable, now that I am fulfilling the things that I have been called to do, like you're stepping in the way of that. I finally was just so broken. I was like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, what? And they were like, I literally was like, I'm a terrible person. So a friend of mine finally intervened. It was during a hair appointment. I was getting my hair cut. I was sitting in the little chair. She was really like dyeing my hair, like literally in the middle. She stopped what she was doing. She got down in front of me and she was like, you need to leave. You need to leave right now. And this girl's very quiet, very sweet, amazing. One of my very close friends to this day. Like, very wise person was like, you need to leave and never go back. Like do not walk back in there. And I was sobbing during my haircut and she finished my hair and it looked beautiful. And that she was like, you can come to my church if you want to, and if your husband doesn't want to join, he can go to that church and you can come to our church. And like I just left, told Brandon and he said, no, you're right. Like I'm done. We texted the serving team. We'd been serving for 10 years nonstop, no break. Texted them, said, hey, I'm so sorry something came up. We will no longer be able to fulfill our serving duties. Thank you so much. Never walked back in, never said anything, never told anyone we were leaving. No one ever checked in. No one ever called. No one ever did anything. And it was so frustrating because it was like, my family had been a part of that church for so long. And I honestly, like, if this happened to anyone else, I would never, ever say anything to them about not wanting to go back to a church. Like, I would never, like, I have no judgment towards people who have experienced church hurt or any hurt and not feel comfortable or safe in the church because it's such a common occurrence. And it's so weird. And this is why I feel like it's very special for me. Like, I did feel like I was safe in a church and I got to go back to one, but that is a very specific situation where, like, for me, that's what worked best for me and that was what healthy for me, but that's not the case for everyone. And so now I'm in a community that loves gardening and art and like just creating beautiful things, and they listen and they come to me and ask me for accessibility advice and how to make safer spaces. And so obviously like this is a better fit for me, but like how in any community, like whether it be sports teams or churches or clubs or community activities, like even rec like parks and recreation places, like how do we make these places accessible so people feel like they're welcome?
Mm,
Like this isn't about the church, it's about people feeling uncomfortable by disabilities. And like what does that mean? Like why are we uncomfortable, and educating people more on accessibility and what not to do? And it's like disability is not a bad word. We can say it, we can address it, and we can make safe spaces for it. And like I really don't want to like I don't want to like say bad things about the church, but at the same time, like I really want to see people step up. If they're claiming to serve their community with the hands and feet of Jesus, they need to love people unconditionally because that's what they were called to do and that's what they ascribe to. And I assign that to anybody. Like if you say that you love people and like you're an activist or an advocate or you're a teacher or a politician or someone who's a service-based industry, like you were called to do your job and respect people. And I don't think it just applies to religious settings, or it applies to anything. But oh, this is so weird. This is the first time I'm sharing my story openly. And I don't want it to come across like I have so much respect for a lot of people at that old church. And again, this was like 4 people. Like only 4 people had to do it, but it's the fact that no one stepped in, and
It
that's
only
why.
takes one person
Yeah,
to
it's one.
ruin someone's whole experience.
Yeah, so
No matter what
frustrating.
environment you're in, whether you're in a workplace, whether you're in a church, whether you're in a store, whether you're, it doesn't matter, like it really doesn't matter. It literally only takes one person to ruin your whole experience with that one thing.
Completely. And it's like I've forgiven those people, and I don't want to say
Sure.
like I want people to think that like, oh, she just like bashed a whole group of people. Like I think they do a really good job at like building houses for people who've lost their houses, or like there was a mom who her child was in the foster care system because they had a hole in their roof and she couldn't afford to fix it, and they went and they repaired that roof. And I think you can't discredit all the beautiful things happening,
Sure.
and you can't discredit that, but there is something to say if like you say you're an accessible church that goes beyond saying like a wheelchair can come through the doors or someone can serve on a serving team.
Yeah, 100,000%. So moving, that's actually a perfect segue into my last question for you, which is, since you've seen the show before, you know what it is.
Yeah.
But I always ask this to all of my guests because, and I love this question because everybody's answer is wildly different from
For
everybody else's, and I love it. I love how dynamic it is. So, my main demographic are young teenagers, usually ages 13 to 18. Some people are my age, like 18 to or our age, usually like 18 to 24. But a lot of my demographic on all platforms are young teenagers. And I get a lot of comments all the time from those young kids that are like, hey, I'm disabled. I don't know how to love my disabled body. Or I have hearing loss. I don't know how to advocate for myself. Or I don't have that great of a support system. I don't know how to be confident in the current body that I have. Or embrace where I'm at in my life. So, my question for you is what would you tell those young teenagers, or what would you tell yourself at that age?
That is such a good question. And I always love hearing the answers for that question. But I think something that is so like heavy on me is the fact that like as much as like people with chronic illness or disability or even hearing loss can experience like physical pain or distrust with their own body, like it's important to remember like you only have one body. Like it's the body you're in, so you have to show yourself love and grace. You cannot compare yourself to someone else. Like we may have things in common, Cassidy, but I can't compare how my body functions to yours, and you can't compare it to mine because you're going to set yourself up for failure. You have to work with the resources that you have, the accommodations you have, the mobility aids you have. You have to rest and make sure you are taking care of that body in whatever way it looks best for you. You can't let other people determine what that looks like. You are your biggest advocate. Your voice, like if you use it with confidence, I promise in time, like you will grow into that part of your story. And if you work with your body, like you can do amazing things. And it's okay to feel that pain and embrace it. You need to lean into it sometimes and be like, this is the situation I'm in. This is who I am. But at the same time, like just know that like you can change the narrative through what you're going through. Like that is empowering, and you're not suffering without a purpose. You are truly your biggest advocate, and no matter what you do or what job you have or the people you meet, your story is unique to that. So just being gracious with yourself as you go on that journey that simply never ends. You're never going to reach a point where you figured it all out. So just give yourself grace and time, and you'll just grow into yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Of
Where can
course.
people find you?
You can find For the Deaf Girl on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok at For the Deaf Girl, as well as my personal page if you want to see some different kind of content with more like spiritual or disability advocacy or just fun fashion girly content at Simply Ryan. It's Simply, and then my name is spelled Ryin. It's pronounced Ryan, but it's just a fun, cute little spelling.
Your mom was in a silly, goofy mood,
She
you
wasn't
know?
in a cooking mood. It's just conversation starter.
We love
Yeah,
it. She was thinking ahead. We love
yeah, no, for sure.
it. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. I really
Thank you for
appreciated it.
having me. This was so fun.
It was. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable and so open and sharing your story. I know it was a little nerve-wracking. You said at the beginning before we started filming that you were a little nervous, but I think you crushed it. And
Thank
I'm so excited to be the platform that you share your story for the first time on, and or parts of it on the for the first time on. And I'm so excited for the listeners and the viewers to get to listen to this. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. So
you.
thank
Yeah,
you so
I'm so excited.
I'm also so excited. And thank you for listening and watching to this episode of The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches. Please give a 5-star rating, depending on where you're watching or listening. Make sure to like this episode if you liked it. And comment down below. I also now have a podcast guest form, or I think it's a suggest a guest form on my website now. So if you want to submit yourself to be on this podcast or someone that you love, please go over there and suggest a guest because God knows I need so many more. Please. I love interviewing people and I love having people on. So please go check that out. Please go follow me on all platforms. I do post on Instagram and Facebook Reels as well as YouTube Shorts and TikTok every single day. I have a YouTube vlog that comes out every Wednesday and a podcast episode here on The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches, out everywhere you listen to podcasts that comes out every single Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.